All right, folks, next segment here on the program, Coaching Hot Seat Rankings. We'll count you down from number 10 all the way to number 1, and let's go to Lambeau Field here with number 10 on the list, Mr. Mike McCarthy, head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and he has surfaced before of being in the hot seat discussion here, Tom. We're going to use this hot seat status ranking here. We're going to start in the lukewarm territory.
Yeah, don't panic about this situation right now for Mike McCarthy. Panic if he misses the playoffs. That's where Mike McCarthy and some of these other guys outside the top 5, for example, need to be concerned. And there's a reason McCarthy is down here at 10, but there have been buzz several years in the past that McCarthy could be on the hot seat. Even though the Packers have made the playoffs in those seasons, they didn't end the way they were supposed to. With Aaron Rodgers, you're supposed to have won more than one Super Bowl. You're supposed to be competing for that every year, and the reality is the Packers haven't exactly done that. Now, McCarthy's record overall has been very good. It's been solid. A lot of playoff bursts for Green Bay. Last year, they gave him a pass because, look, Aaron Rodgers was hurt. So kind of what's the point there? You're going to go and allow that there. But with McCarthy, if they miss the playoffs, that's where things could get concerning for McCarthy and his future in Green Bay. Plus, the new GM, not afraid to make changes overall, Cam.
Brian Gutekunst now the GM there for the Green Bay Packers. Mike McCarthy has been part of getting flack for bad play calling, shall we say, in years past here.
Yeah.
What do you think the offensive game plan is for the Packers next year?
Well, they added Jimmy Graham, so I think we'll see the tight end used more frequently. Again, it's all going to be built around Aaron Rodgers, so as long as Rodgers has success, I think they'll be okay there. Overall, McCarthy's been a good head coach for the Packers, but you've had one of the 2 best quarterbacks of this generation. I'll call it 4 QBs, and you haven't won in the way that you would have liked to win. So that's the big concern there with McCarthy, is that at a certain point, if you don't win the whole damn thing, the staff and the front office and even Aaron Rodgers just kind of get a little fed up and say, you know what, we got to change something because we've been good, but good isn't good enough. We have to be great.
From a personality standpoint, I don't know if I've always liked Mike McCarthy. I never thought he was the greatest leader in the NFL. I mean, I even think Jason Garrett's a better leader.
That's because you watched All or Nothing.
Yeah, well I also like his clapping.
I mean, I think, Cowboys fans will disagree with you on that one, Cam. McCarthy, I think at times can maybe be a little bit bland, but the record does speak for itself. This would be an example of if he's fired, he would find a new head coaching job because there are teams in worse shape that would get an upgrade by hiring Mike McCarthy.
From a resume standpoint, Mike McCarthy certainly stands tall. So we'll see what happens with him going forward. He's at number 10 on our list here. Let's go to number 9, and we'll go to Charm City with this selection. John Harbaugh, coming off a 9-7 campaign with the Baltimore Ravens, has been the coach for a decade now. Consistent in the early going in the Joe Flacco era. Things have gotten a little choppy in the last couple of years. The Ravens haven't made the playoffs since 2014, Tom.
Then that's the issue. They've only made it once since they won that Super Bowl. They're at about a 500 record. Ever since that, and that's kind of the big concern with Harbaugh is you hit that peak, you hit that high, playoffs each of his first couple years, won the Super Bowl, and have only won 10 games once since then, and that 2014 was a good run there. They should have made it this year, without a doubt. They should have made the playoffs. They blew it against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Unbelievable.
That's the concern with, I know
I can't believe that
you're still upset about that one. The quarterback play, I know you like to admit it, Cam, has been an issue for Baltimore, both contract-wise and just actual on-the-field play-wise. So Harbaugh falls into the same Mike McCarthy category. He is a good head coach, but you kind of get the long tenure there. You haven't taken that next step forward to make it back and to win Super Bowls. And at that point, do you just go, you know what? We just need a change of some type.
Does the situation get stale, if you will? Is that the big-time question with John Harbaugh?
And I think that just like McCarthy, if John Harbaugh became available in the open market, he'd get picked up real fast. Like, we'll go through other teams on this list, the Cowboys, maybe the Bengals, for example. All of these teams, I think, would leap at the chance to get Harbaugh if he does become available, which is also why I wouldn't want to fire him. I know things haven't gone all that well. Maybe you try and make some more coordinator changes, for example. But I believe that Harbaugh is a good head coach, and if you make it back to the playoffs, what could very well happen in a down AFC, he will definitely be safe as well.
You got to wonder if the Ravens will force the issue at some point in 2018. If Joe Flacco struggles for a few games and they push Lamar Jackson into the fray. And with that, we ask you guys watching, when should the Ravens start Lamar Jackson at quarterback?
when Flacco starts to struggle really badly, and once
I'm
Jackson
saying 5 years from now. No,
okay.
I mean, I really don't know.
I think ideally you don't start him this season.
Yeah.
I think you want to give him the year to grow, year to learn. You can play him a little bit in various packages like Baltimore is considering, but I don't want to play him right this second.
All right, let's go to number 8 in our coaching hot seat rankings. John Harbaugh, by the way, in the lukewarm category. So is this guy, Jay Gruden, head coach of the Washington Redskins, 7-9 campaign back in 2017. Did sign a 2-year extension in early 17 as well, Tom. But
what happens? But what happens if the Redskins, miss the playoffs again this year, Cam? Then what happens? That's kind of the concern for me. And the other thing is, you can kind of go back and look at the tenure for the Redskins once they were bought out by their current owner. They've had a very quick trigger finger. Once Dan Snyder took over the Redskins, they have not kept their coaches for an extended period of time. Now, Dan Snyder went out and he bought the Redskins at 1999. So really, we'll start off in 2000. Norv Turner was not there very long. Once Jay Gruden coaches his first game, he'll have been the longest tenured head coach of the Dan Snyder era. And it feels like he just got the job, right?
Yeah.
It feels like he's only been there for a little bit. And they made the playoffs in 2015. They've been around a 500 team since then. If they finish, let's just say 7-9, 8-8, or heck, even 6-10, is that enough to keep Gruden's job?
I don't think so.
Because I think the Redskins, they don't like to keep things the same. They like change. Some would argue too much so, and I would agree. And you have the one playoff berth. I think that there's a real possibility, Cam, that the Redskins finish last in the NFC East. And if that happens, do you pull the trigger on Jay Gruden at that point? Even though I like Gruden.
I think you're tempted to, at least, if you're Snyder.
Here's the flip side. Because of the way they ran their quarterback room, they've got Alex Smith, and with Alex Smith at the helm, their window is limited. Mm-hmm. So if you have a down year this year, if you regress to 6 wins, maybe that's when you kind of see Jay Gruden kind of get a little bit more hot seat buzz. Now, he's not on it really right now. I think if you're lukewarm, you're not panicking at this time, but you want to at least compete for a playoff berth. That's kind of the expectation for all the last 3 teams we've mentioned. And for many of the teams we'll discuss, it's a playoff berth, and if they miss out on that, then the coaching status kind of gets a little bit unclear.
Nothing is guaranteed in this category right now.
No, it's not. That's why it's lukewarm and not mild or hot.
All right, so Jay Gruden's there at number 8. Let's go to number 7 on the list here, and we've got Todd Bowles, head coach of the Jets, still in the lukewarm category here. The Jets have been patient with him, Tom.
And I'm sure we'll get comments. Yes, he signed an extension. He's only signed, though, through 2020. So it's really not a long-term extension. And by the way, how'd that work out for the Lions head coach?
Oh, yeah, not great.
Didn't. So just because you see extension, it gives you short-term job security, but it's not like the Jets have said, oh, yeah, Todd Bowles, he is our guy for the next 10 years. We feel great about him. We gave him a 10-year, $100 million deal, just like the Raiders gave to John Gruden. So when it comes to Todd Bowles, I like him. I don't think he's been dealt that great of a hand. But let's say the Jets finish 5-11 again this year, with a lot of people saying that they might win fewer games than that. There's really, record-wise, no improvement early on for Todd Bowles. And yeah, he went 10-6 his first year, and they overachieved, especially earlier last year. But if they have another down year, even though they just drafted Sam Darnold, maybe the Giants make a change. I can definitely see Bowles being lower on this, and if I had to bet right now, I don't think he gets fired. But I do think we need to have the discussion about, hey, what is it going to take for Todd Bowles to keep his job next year? Even with the extension that signed him through 2020, that's not exactly super secure long-term job security. I mean, that's not even a new contract when you first get hired. Mm-hmm. That's like he's in year 2 or 3 of his first deal, more or less.
I think an 8-8 campaign with some promise from maybe Sam Darnold, they'll keep him around.
I think on the flip side, if you're Todd Bowles, you might deep down want to play Sam Darnold earlier, because if he can show the flashes, you can point and say, hey, look what we did with Darnold this year. Give me at least another year, and we'll make more progress.
Sure, you got that argument there.
Or on the flip side, Darnold's really, really not ready, and you really want to play Josh McCown, but you're still in his cap with Josh McCown. That's my concern in the end with the Jets and why he's on here. I don't know what the actual realistic max win total is for the Jets. Like, if they win 10 games, I'd be pretty surprised.
So would I. Yep, no doubt about that. All right, Todd Bowles there at number 7. Let's go to number 6 here, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Adam Gase. And Adam Gase is just in a really weird situation here with Miami.
I hate putting him on here. I actually really like Adam Gase.
It's almost not fair.
I think he is a good head coach.
He's in the mild category, by the way.
The issue is the arc has been all wrong for Adam Gase and the Dolphins. Normally, you bring in a new coach, and they have a down year. They make changes, and they grow upward. But for the Dolphins, for whatever reason, it has been. They started the year pretty good. The first season was pretty good for Gase and the Dolphins, and then they had a down year, and now they've made changes. So the order of coaching adjustments hasn't been the way it was supposed to be for Miami. And I just worry that the Dolphins are going to win like 4 games this year. And the Miami leadership is going to go, man, you won 10 games your first year, then you won 6, then you won 4. Culture change or not, that's not the progress we want to see. Bye-bye Adam Gase.
Remember the buzz around Gase
I still like him.
The quarterback whisperer, if you will.
I believe in Adam Gase, and much like Todd Bowles, I don't think the hand that's been dealt to him has been all that great. I saw a comment on that as well in the comments section. I think the trend is the wrong direction, and I think that knowing the Miami Dolphins leadership, I would not at all be surprised if Gase gets the can.
Yeah, Michael in the comments section saying that quarterback play will certainly decide
a lot of
his fate.
A lot of these jobs. And if Ryan Tannehill doesn't improve at all, and if he struggles, I think you're going to see the Dolphins say, you know what, let's just blow it all up.
All right, so Adam Gase is there at number 6 in our hot seat rankings. Let's summarize what we have here. So we got McCarthy at 10, Harbaugh at 9, Gruden at 8, Bowles at 7, Adam Gase there at number 6. And this summary here is presented by Autolist. Head on to Autolist.com. Get that car shopping done in a very fast fashion. New and used cars. Get it done. Autolist.com. Let's continue along here in our rankings, and we'll go to number 5 in the coaching hot seat list here.
Juicy portion now.
Yeah, so we're going to the hot status, and we've got Jason Garrett here at number 5, Tom.
It is hot, hot, hot indeed. If Jason Garrett, I've said this many a time on the Cowboys Report and on NFL Daily, if Jason Garrett does not lead the Cowboys to the playoffs, barring an unforeseen circumstance surrounding multiple key injuries, including Dak and Zeke and Sean Lee and Smith and half the offensive line, I don't see how Jason Garrett keeps his job. I think it is absolutely playoffs or bust this year for Garrett. At a certain point, you have to win more than one playoff game. Even if the Cowboys make the playoffs and they lose that first game, I don't think his job is all that safe. And I realize that the Cowboys have made quite a bit of changes around their coaching staff and around the personnel, and they've gotten younger at a lot of notable areas. I still think it's playoffs or bust for Jason Garrett. Now, he got a pass in 2015 because there were injuries. He got a pass in 2016, but I don't know. Or not pass, he got a pass this year because there were injuries and because they didn't have Zeke for 6 games. I don't know what the future is going to hold for Jason Garrett. I would not at all be surprised if after this year the Cowboys, even if they win 10 games and miss the playoffs, I think you're going to see Garrett gone.
Time for you guys to weigh in. If the Cowboys miss the playoffs, should they fire Jason Garrett? Give us a heart for yes, a wow face for no. And I feel like we're going to get a lot of love here in the reaction poll, Tom.
Well, I think absolutely. I think if that's what ends up happening, you've got to say, you know what, bye-bye Jason Garrett. You are not a good enough head coach for us. We have to make a change. And then we'll see what ends up happening there with the Cowboys if they fire Jason Garrett. I think that's going to be a very coveted job. Of course, it's not always easy to get the most coveted guy. A lot of pressure. There is a lot of pressure on that job as well. So I totally agree with you there.
Okay, so Jason Garrett's at number 5 in our rankings here. Let's go to number 4 on our list. We'll go to Cincinnati. It's Marvin Lewis. Tom, we can't put him on this list because the Cincinnati Bengals will never fire him, so why does it even matter?
Well, I think at some point they'll fire him, right?
No, they won't. They love this guy.
Look, I don't get it. I know that the Bengals were a god-awful organization before Marvin Lewis showed up and he got them kind of winning and competing outside of some bad years in 2008, 2009. But you make the playoffs 7 times and you don't win a single playoff game? You go 7-9 after a 6-9-1 season? I just don't understand how he kept his job. I really, truly don't.
How are you employed? I'm asking you.
I remain convinced, as only partially joking, that Marvin Lewis has dirt on Mike Brown and that he is blackmailing the Bengals owner, Mike Brown, to keep his job. That's just my personal
theory. Like a risque Snapchat or something?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, it's Mike Brown, so you can go a lot of different directions there, I guess. But it really doesn't make sense. And all reality is, I think that Mike Brown is okay with not winning Super Bowls. I think he is okay with within reason money-wise. Mike Brown doesn't want to spend a lot of money. That's not how he is. He's voted against those types of measures within the NFL. He likes to be a profitable NFL owner. He is willing to say, you know what, I'll go 10-5 and make a playoffs and get bounced in the first round, and then accept the fact that we don't win the Super Bowl. As long as we make the playoffs, and I'm making money. So that's the concern with me with the Bengals. And the Bengals' consistency of being an average to mediocre football team and keeping Marvin Lewis just tells me that they are okay with being a mediocre football team or an average to above average football team. And I hate that because they should have had their changes. From 2011 to 2015, they made the playoffs every single year, and they didn't win a single game. And I was at one of those games, the Chargers game a couple of years ago. The fans hate it. They were tired of Marvin Lewis a year and a half ago.
Well, you're immersed in all of it. You're a Cincinnati kid.
Everyone thought he was gone.
Yeah.
There were obviously some who said, no, it's never going to happen because they just never, ever thought it was going to happen. But to keep Marvin Lewis for as long as the Bengals have, it's just mind-numbing to me. Like I've got family and friends who are like, cool, glad Marvin got to go out on a win against the Ravens. And then they're like, oh, my God, we kept him. Why? With a 2-year contract extension, which Mike didn't like paying extra money, so maybe he gets 2 more years. Everyone thought he was dead man walking last year, and yet here he is, entering his 16th year in the NFL.
Can anyone guess why Marvin Lewis is still the head coach of the Bengals? Let us know in comments.
Be creative, too.
Yes, absolutely. Let's go to number 3 on our list here. We'll go to Denver. It's Vance Joseph. And, Tom, you're thinking he could be in trouble here. And Fuego, if you will.
Yes, this is now the hot seat status of being on Fuego. You are on fire if you're one of these top 3 coaches. All guys that should have or nearly were fired last year. Or should have been fired or almost were.
I thought he was gone.
I kind of thought he was too. It was a bad first year for Vance Joseph. John Elway showing a lot of patience by keeping Joseph for another year. I liked him coming over from the Dolphins job, or as the DC has had some time with the Bengals as well. I liked him, but he just kind of looked overwhelmed in year 1. I think he was a little hesitant to make a move with Mike McCoy. The offense in particular has to be so much better because the defense was on the field way too much last year. They are banking hard on Case Keenum being the guy to get them back to that 9 or 10 win mark and try and recapture the magic of an elite defense carries us to a Super Bowl behind an, let's just say, average quarterback.
Well, the big question is, can Bill Musgrave and Case Keenum get on the same page here?
We'll see. I am very curious how the run game works out. The run game for Denver has been good in the past. Again, they cut C.J. Anderson. How does Royce Freeman fare?
Yep.
How does Devontae Booker fare? How does Henderson fare? We'll see. I think that Denver has the upside, but I think maybe of all the AFC West teams, I think their range is the biggest. Like, if you tell me Denver...
Floor to ceiling.
Like, I could easily see Denver winning the AFC West, but I could see them having another top 5 pick if the quarterback play does not go well next year.
All right, so there is Vance Joseph there. He's at number 3 in our hot seat rankings. Let's take a look at number 2. And this guy probably should have been fired last year, Tom. Dirk Koetter, head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. And it hasn't been a good trial so far.
I don't know why you hired Dirk Koetter. And I don't know why you kept him this year either. I mean, you can go back and look at Dirk Koetter's resume of being the offensive coordinator for, the Falcons and the Bucs and the Jags, and those teams really were not that great offensively. Like, they were average at best. Maybe a little bit above average at times as well. I thought, as with all the hype around the Bucs last year, of, this is going to be their year. They're going to be the trendy, popular playoff team out of the NFC. Blew up in their faces in embarrassing fashion, I think.
Well, they were the sexy wild card pick.
I mean, you got Jameis Winston out there eating W's and taking L's. The defense did not get along. There was a lot of internal turmoil there. You kind of make, there's not some true sweeping ones, but you make some adjustments there. You focus on the defensive line in the offseason. You upgrade there. I don't trust Dirk Koetter, and I didn't like the hire at the time. I was really surprised you went with the guy whose only other head coach experience was at Arizona State and got fired. So I didn't like the hire at the time, and I thought the Bucs messed up in a big, big way. You're trying to get Jameis Winston back on track, and it showed last year. I don't think he and Koetter get along. I don't think Koetter is the right guy to grow and improve Jameis Winston as a quarterback.
Kind of like Malarkey and Mariota didn't work.
Those two teams, I thought even last year, they were on very similar paths. Both teams had a lot of hype around them. This was going to be their kind of breakout year. And instead, the Titans, because they're in the AFC, won enough games, but they actually weren't that good of a football team. Their point differential was all kinds of off. Malarkey didn't look like a good head coach. Even though the Titans won a playoff game, they still came to their senses, kind of by accident, I guess, because they couldn't agree on a contract extension, that Mularkey's not our guy. So even after winning a playoff game, they fired him. The Bucs and Dirk Koetter, well, they just keep giving him another shot. And I think it's going to be to the detriment of Jameis Winston's development as a quarterback. And I think that another down year for Winston, you kind of feel like you wasted it, if that's the case, with Koetter being his coordinator and head coach.
And fuego for Dirk Koetter. Let's go to the final name here, and he's the head coach of the team that went 0-16 a year ago. Hue Jackson, 1-31 in 2 years with the Browns, and that stat really sticks out.
How many head coaches in the world, regardless of team, could go 1-31 and keep their job? Like maybe Belichick?
Maybe.
And somehow Hue Jackson is included in that grouping. I just do not understand. On a related note, folks, Hue Jackson will indeed be jumping into Lake Erie. He is going to keep his bet, and he's going to dive in June. Because he said if the Browns won one game again this year, he would jump into the lake. And he has the Browns announced today that, yeah, they're going to do that, and it's all going to be for charity.
Oh, okay.
Which is very fun.
Nice.
It's also very funny because he did not think that was going to have to happen. But there was a lot of Twitter jokes on that one as well. But Hue Jackson, had a good job as the Bengals offensive coordinator. And then with the Browns, he has mishandled his quarterbacks in really the worst possible way. I don't know if you could do any worse of a job setting up your quarterback for success than Hue Jackson did. Randomly would throw Deshaun Kaiser under the bus. What a great way to build your young quarterback's confidence when one of the big knocks on him was that, Kelly was too tough on him. And then Hue Jackson was just as tough, if not tougher. So I was very surprised Hue Jackson kept his job. I think he's the first head coach fired. I think maybe if the Browns start the year badly, if they get eliminated from the playoffs, or if they're 1-8, 1-9, whatever, I think John Dorsey might just say, you know what, it ain't working. You're fired. I'm done. Well,
we're getting some sympathy in the comments section. Melvin, Ron, they're both feeling bad for Hue right now.
I mean, it's not like he was dealt a great hand. But, you got to be able to win more than one game. And it's also the way the Browns lost. It wasn't like Hue Jackson was providing great leadership from any of those young players. Now, he gets another chance to prove everyone wrong and a much better roster this year. But who here actually trusts Hue Jackson that Hue is the guy to get the Browns to the playoffs?
I think this is the real test this year. I think the Browns have the pieces in place to compete.
If Hue Jackson doesn't win more than 5 or 6 games, does he keep his job?
You got Gordon. You got Landry. You got Carlos.
On paper, your team's actually not terrible.
It's solid. So there you go.
I just don't trust you, Jackson.
All right, my guy Adrian in the comments section asking about Jason Garrett. Adrian, got you covered, my man. Here's the summary of the hot seat rankings. McCarthy, Harbaugh, Gruden, Bowles, and Gase, 10-6 there, folks. Here comes Garrett at number 5 on our list here, followed by Marvin Lewis there at number 4, followed by Vance Joseph, Dirk Koetter's there, and then Hue Jackson checking in at number 1. All right, so as we went down that list.
Those first 3 guys, Hue, Dirk, and Vance. I think Marvin should have been fired last year as well. In general, Cam, we see a lot of coaches get fired around 6, 5, 7, somewhere in that range. Those are the guys to monitor. Quick fun fact for you guys. 2015, there were 7 changes at the head coaching job. 2 are still with their teams. Todd Bowles and Dan Quinn.
Turnover. It's a thing.
That's not good.